Just kidding.
Hallelujah. We made it. We are here live in San Antonio with my daughter, Tamako. And that's a very good thing. It was a long drive today down here, but it was good. I didn't get here as early as I wanted to, but I got here as fast as I could safely. And we had this idea. I had something else that I was kind of thinking about talking about today, but then I said, Tommy, can I interview you again?
Yes.
She said yes. Because something that she has experienced is very relevant to today. So in our Waymaker email today, which was mislabeled a little bit, it was supposed to be accentuate the positive. And so we're just going to stick with that. And if you didn't notice the misspelling, that's okay. That's good. That's a good thing. And if you did notice the misspelling, that's okay too, because it got your attention. But what I want to talk about is this fact that negativity rules our world. It really does. So the world, the enemy, using the world, will pull our attention away. It will move our focus from the eternal that we're supposed to be focused on to the here and now and the temporary, which can be very frustrating as a Christian. You're moving along and you're walking with Jesus, and then all of a sudden you're worried, you're afraid, you don't know what to do. And that happens to all of us. And it's happened in the last year to my daughter. And we wanted to talk about this because there's something you can do about it. And as we walk through this life and we're trying to keep this eternal mindset, and we're being pulled by friends, even family sometimes, church members, people who have good intentions, fellow employees or bosses maybe even, they're really trying to protect you sometimes, but it ends up bringing this negativity and this temporary thinking and this worry and fear to a situation that God has already prepared for us, and He's already walked through it before we get there, and He has a plan. It's really hard for us to stay focused and understand that every step of the way. We get off track, and I think that the more that we experience that and talk about it and learn from it, then when it comes again, because it will come again, we're more prepared and we're ready to take on the battle, so to speak, to keep this positive. And I don't like toxic positive thinking. Everything isn't happy. Everything isn't good. But this eternal positive thinking that God has got this and everything is going to be okay, regardless of what the circumstances show us today and right this minute, it's going to be okay. In counseling, there's a couple of things that they love to focus on and help us to focus on. And that is that the only things that you can control are your thoughts and your actions. Emotions, they feel like they're out of our control, but they're really built on the thoughts that we think and the beliefs that those cause or that we choose to believe. And so if we're thinking these eternal things and then we're drawn into this temporary mindset, it can cause an emotional response. It can affect our emotions. And then we can get stressed and have these feelings that can have some adverse effects on us. But if you, for instance, if you listen to the news all day long like I used to, it is affecting your thinking. And even though you know that God has got everything and He's in control, you listen to the news, it doesn't sound like that at all. And it can cause worry and stress in your body. It changes your way of thinking about the world that you live in. And you begin to change your belief system from God has got this and we don't have to worry about it to, oh no, what am I going to do? And that's really not our job. The world is way too big for us to take care of. But we have been given a circle of influence. We've been given a part of the world And that's what we walk through, and that's the influence that we have, and that's what we can make waves in. But those waves really need us to focus our thoughts, hold tight to our beliefs when the storms would toss us to and fro. So Tamako had an amazing opportunity to work the dream job she's always had, and she excelled very quickly and was passionate about what she was doing and enjoying it. And I can't tell you how many times that we would talk on the phone and I would just get excited for her and I was bragging all over the place about how good she was doing, how far she was advancing. And then God kind of tapped her on the shoulder and tell us what were your choices? So you had two choices. This God tap, which was what?
So I was in class on a Sunday morning, and we had been going over the book of Proverbs in depth. We were going verse by verse, and I was having the best time, and I loved everything because I love the book of Proverbs. My favorite verses in Proverbs is, if you do this, you're a fool. This is the right way to do things. And I just love the back and forth that, it shows you the consequences of your actions, but it also shows you, okay, well, instead, that's a negative, but here's a positive. This is what you do right. So Proverbs, I love Proverbs. So I'm sitting in the Bible class, and we have an amazing teacher, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about it, and man, I want more. I want so much more than what I'm getting on Sundays and Wednesdays. I'm getting, a lot from these classes that I'm going to, and then also more than what I'm getting, on my own, because there's only so much that I can teach myself on my own as far as knowledge of the Bible, and different things like that. So I was like, I want more. And luckily, my brother Samson was in town, who went through the AIM program. And I knew that I didn't want to go through that program. I've been very close to it all growing up. I know how it works and the ins and outs, and I wasn't drawn to it. I just
Let's take just a moment. AIM stands for Adventures in Missions, and it's through the Sunset International Bible Institute. It's a wonderful program for young people just out of high school or just a year or two out of high school. Gives them some Bible knowledge and some mission experience. And we have two sons who went through that program, and several kids who joined. What they do is Camp Adventure to help them kind of get an idea of what AIM would be like. And she had been through Camp Adventure and just had known that was not what she was drawn to.
Yeah, it's a wonderful program, but it's just not. It wasn't for me. I did not find it appealing to myself, as that's not something I wanted to do. And I just had different. I was going different ways, and I was like, well, this is just not for me. And so I met up with Samson while he was here, and I told him, I was like, man, I want more. Is there any way to get the classes that you take in AIM, but not the rest of it? Because that's what I wanted. I wanted the knowledge. I wanted somebody to teach me, and I wanted to learn more. And I really wanted to go deep into the scriptures and into everything surrounding the Bible. And he said, well, why don't you go to Sunset? And so
Sunset International Bible Institute has two other programs. They have a 2-year. Yes. So they have a 2-year Bible study program for women and men. Men go through have several different options, and women have other options. But both of them have a deep Bible education connected to them, and so that's when he's talking about Sunset. We're talking about the Sunset courses, CIBI. But Sunset has these courses that you can take, which is equal to an associate's degree out of the 2-year program, and then I think you can continue on to the bachelor program, because my husband did that.
Yes.
And they also have a master's program now. So it's like a Bible university where you don't take extra courses like English or science or history or those kinds of things. It's solely Bible focused.
That's what we were talking about, because he explained to me all of these other places. So there's LCU and there's Harding, and all of these different places. And I didn't want all of the other stuff that came with it. I wasn't really interested in that. I just wanted the Bible. That's all that I wanted. And so he explained that to me, and I said, you know what, I'll look into it. So called mom and dad, because dad had gone through the program. So I said, who better to get information from than somebody who went through it? So I got all of that information, and I took it, and I started researching more about it and looking into, because I had my job, and I loved my job, and I was doing so well, and I was being an example to my coworkers, and that, to me, I loved that a lot. And so I wanted more to give to them. And so I was trying to find a way where I could do both. And so I found the online program, and you get to pick how many classes you do, and when you do them, it's completely on your own time. They just give you 3 to 6 months to finish a class. But the in between, you do it when you can. And so I was like, yes, this is for me. This is what I need. So I picked one class to see, it's like, can I do both? And the first couple, up to midterms was really fantastic, but really hard. Trying to study for midterms, and I did well overall in the class. But I sat after the class was over. I sat and I thought about it, and to myself, I could have done so much better. I know I could have studied more, and I could have gotten more out of it. I got a lot out of it, but I could have gotten more from this class had I been that was it. That was all. And when I was doing that class, that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to go back to work. I didn't want to, go anywhere. I just wanted to do the class. So I started looking into going in person. And then there was a lot of up and downs between lots of people. Obviously, all of my family was in complete support of me because it would bring me back to the Panhandle, but also because, why I was making the decision. When I told people here or certain other people from back home, it was not the same reaction, which I have always struggled with big decisions. I, just within the last couple of years have made several decisions where this has kind of been the steps that I go through, which is I start thinking about something and I'm like, well, maybe this could work. And then I start pitching the idea to other people to get their advice, to get their opinions, not because I'm going to listen to you and only you and say, you say it's not going to, okay, I'm not going to do it. I just want advice. I want opinions because people have more experience than I do. They've done things similar to what I'm doing. What are the pros and what are the cons? And obviously praying about it to make sure that it was the right decision. And so I go back and forth a lot with, is this the right decision? What do I do? Because both choices are good.
Well, and we talked about this earlier today. The opinions of others tend to split into two camps. And this is for you and me too. It's not just young people. Everybody has these two camps. And one camp is this reality-based, logical, you got to know how you're going to pay the rent, and you got to think about this temporary life that we're living in. And not that that's not true, but the other camp is the eternal mindset, where you're thinking, is this what God wants me to do? Is this path going to serve something other than myself? And so you have these two camps, and even Christians will try to influence you to do what is best for you right now, especially when you're 19, 20 years old. They always want you to think about your education. Think about how that's going to affect your future. Think about your rent. Think about this career opportunity that you had. All good meaning things, but all temporary, mind focused. Mm-hmm. And even good Christian people will often do that. But there's this eternal mind focus that we get glimpses of through certain avenues. The Word of God, certainly the first avenue that we get this through. But then godly people who have this focus are also going to speak into our lives an eternal thought process. Is this going to glorify God? Is this something that God has already given you some experience with, or some talents with, or some love or passion for? These things that really connect us to the eternal thought process. And you had a lot from both camps.
I did. I absolutely did. And, I thought about it for a long time. And I believe either route I chose, whether I chose to stay at my job and to continue that or to go to school, I know that either one would have been wonderful and would have been great. I would have excelled at my job, and I would have continued to, be it was amazing to me. This was my first job working with other coworkers, a lot of different coworkers who I didn't know beforehand. It was my first customer service job, really, where I spoke to millions of people all the time, and all different from sun up to sundown. It was, worked some 12-hour shifts and never saw the same person. So it was amazing to me, the example that I was, because I'm just me, I didn't do anything special or anything different. I was just there and I was working, and I really never had a bad attitude because I didn't want to go into work with a bad attitude, because that always makes the day turn out terrible.
Well, and as a Christian, you were the salt and the light.
Yes.
And in human form, completely imperfect, but
Absolutely.
but leaning on Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
And making sure that others knew that you were sustained.
And people saw and they noticed. And that, I was just like, wow, I wasn't not expecting it, but I wasn't expecting it to be as big a deal as it was. And I loved that. And so if I would have continued, that's exactly what would have kept happening. And I would have made lots of differences in lots of people's minds and their lives. And I would have loved that. But I also would really love to go to school and to learn more, because I can also do the same thing. People, I've heard it all growing up through the AIM program, where your mission field doesn't have to be across the world. It doesn't have to be across a border. It doesn't even have to cross your city limits. It can be right where you are in your circle of friends. So I have really kept that mindset with me, but not that those places are not also mission fields, but just it can be right here too. And so I decided I also need my family. I'm a very family-oriented person. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this step. And if I finish that school and I feel like I should move back here, I can do that. That's one of the things that I love is you're never really tied down anywhere. God can move you to a completely different place. Learned that partly from the military, partly from just, being around missionaries. You move to different places and different parts of your life. So that was one thing, but people do not understand that. When you tell them, when I was trying to explain to people who were like, don't quit your job. Why would you quit your job right now? You are doing so fantastic. I mean, you're going to be assistant manager. You're going to work up the chains. You want to be an operator, and I did, and they saw that potential, and I still could be, who knows? Yes. But they just couldn't understand. And I tried so hard to explain it. And I was like, I don't know if you're going to understand this. And I had one person speak to me and said, I really don't understand it, but if you are happy and you're happy with the decision that you're making, then I'm okay with it. Or, not I'm okay with it, but then it's fine. Yeah. And I was I can't, people just don't understand the eternal mindset.
Yeah. And they can't grasp the concept that something like a biblical knowledge, a deep biblical knowledge would be more important or could be more important than a secure job, especially in today's economy, especially for a young single woman who doesn't have a partner who to fall back on if you lose your job. So it's really hard for those with nothing but a temporary mindset to understand that you could allow God to move you and it would be okay. even if you're leaving a great job, even if you're leaving a stable situation for something maybe not quite as predictable.
Yeah.
So I think that it would be like trying to explain Alice in Wonderland. I remember trying to explain Alice in Wonderland to my Japanese friends. Because, you know, Alice in Wonderland is this fantastical, imaginary, fictional
Wonderland.
vegetable soup of things. And it is full of wonder and different things that you just can't understand because it's imaginary. And I think sometimes that's what it's like trying to explain some of these concepts to people who don't have a belief or a trust in God. I think that it's very difficult, very hard.
Absolutely.
And you can't get them to understand. And maybe someday God will use this as a seed that other people will water.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
then maybe someday they will have a better understanding
Yes.
of why you would leave this perfectly
Yes.
amazing position for
And
something so uncertain.
There was a lot of back and forth with just myself. You know, there was a lot of back and forth with other people too. But just with myself, is this what I want to do? Is this what I need to do? Is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? Am I going to fall flat on my face when I make whatever decision I make? So, you know, finding the positives in things is, you were talking about toxic positivity.
Yes.
And it's exactly, there is toxic positivity. And then there is, you know, I don't think that positivity necessarily has to be like, oh, happy this, happy that. It's just, you know, like, oh, I am content with my whatever decision that I make, whatever path I go on, it's going to be okay. And, you know, not allowing fear and worry, which is not easy. And I can't pretend that I do it all the time because I don't. I very much let worry and fear, you know, in, and I have to constantly be reminding myself, you know, it's okay. You know, be content, be happy, because no matter what I do, I have a mindset of doing it for the glory of God. So no matter what happens, it's going to turn out just fine. So that's how I make these decisions, is knowing I find a point after my back and forth where I'm just,
okay, Lord,
it's okay. I have dug into this option, and, you know, I'm ruled out all of the negatives. I've done all of the back and forth. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm good.
And you get to that point where you are left with your thoughts and your beliefs and your faith. And that's where you can allow God to be enough. Allow God to move you and or keep you where you are, and know that He is going to be able to use you wherever you are, and that where you are is your mission field, and that you can accomplish His will if you let Him move you or if you stay where you are. These temporary decisions do not shorten the hand of God. And so I think it's amazing, first of all, that that all hope is not lost on the future generations. And I'm not just saying this because she's my daughter, but she has influence and she has friends who are making a difference in the world, and who are allowing God to move them and change them, and really help them learn this process, which is hard for many of us as adults. At 54 years old, I feel like she knows more about this process and really trusting God than I do even. And I've had to trust Him a lot. So I want to bring us into Matthew chapter 6 before we end here. Before I do that, did you have anything else that you wanted to share? Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
Okay. I think that's good.
So Matthew chapter 6, we know that this is where the Lord's Prayer is, but I think we often miss the overall picture. So let's back up to 30,000 feet like we're flying an airplane and we could see the whole part of it. And a common thread throughout this is the hypocrites. And it starts out with, beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them. Now, we want to practice right living. He's not saying don't practice right living. The key here is to be seen by others, and to make sure that people see you when you're giving to the needy, and make sure that other people see when you're praying, or make sure other people see when you're fasting, and so that they can have this view of you that isn't genuine, isn't real. And it doesn't mean that you don't, that it's wrong to be seen when you're doing these things. But if your motivation is to be seen, if your motivation is to show off, if your motivation is so that others will have a different view of you than reality, and that is what the hypocrites do. And throughout this chapter, that's what it keeps going back to. Don't fast just so that other people can see it. And when you fast, don't try to look like you're fasting, because I guess back then they would make themselves look hungry, gloomy, sad, and make sure other people knew that they were fasting. And they wouldn't take care of themselves. Like, they wouldn't brush their hair, they wouldn't wash their face. And that's not what fasting is supposed to be about. And then it talks about laying up your treasures on earth. And this is this mindset that we're talking about. This worldly mindset is loving the things of the earth and wanting to be seen by the world, and laying your treasures up in heaven and having this eternal mindset and wanting to make sure that you're loving the things that are going to be eternal, and really investing your heart, your mind, and your soul in eternal things. And then it comes to verse 22, and it says, the eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. And if then the light in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? No one can serve two masters, for either you'll hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money or mammon, things of this earth. And so it is okay to think logically and realistically, make sure your bills are paid, make sure you have a place to live. But it is also okay to totally trust God with these temporary things while you make more eternal decisions and you really focus on something that you believe God has called you to do, and know and trust that that's going to be okay too. And if my daughter can do it, I feel like I can do it. And I think that's why I really wanted to interview her, for all of our sakes, because I think we all remember being 19 or 20 years old. Most of our audience is not your age group. I hope to have more in your age group. But I do know that when we see someone else trusting God, putting their faith in him, making big changes, that it inspires us to maybe make a leap of faith. And so if you are struggling with this negative pull or these positive eternal thoughts, and you feel that tug of war going on inside your heart, know that you're not alone, and that it will be okay, no matter which decision you make, if you do it with prayer and godly counsel, that God will take care of you. And I'm a firm believer in the fact that if you go to step through a door and that's not the direction God wants you to go in, and you've prayed about it and you really are trusting him, that's not the direction he wants you to go, he'll shut that door and he will open the doors in the direction that he really wants you to go into. So I don't think you can really make a bad decision trusting in him and trying to make good choices. So it's, I'm so proud of you. And not just because you're my daughter, but because as a young Christian woman, these are hard things to do, to swim upstream and go against the grain, especially where your peers and coworkers are concerned, and family members and church members and alike. It's good. It's good. And to trust that 5 years from now, they are going to see where you are, and wherever that is, it's going to be where God has placed you and where you are flourishing as a child of God after this big life change. Those people who walk through it with you and see you through it are going to begin to understand a little bit more about how you can trust God and know that it's going to be okay. Well, thank you so much. This was so much fun, and I forgot to do this. So this is Tamako, in case you're sometimes I'm hard of hearing and I cannot hear how the name is, and I think I've called her Tommy a couple of times because that's her nickname. But this is her name, Tamako Weiss. And if you are interested, she doesn't know I'm going to do this.
Oh.
But this school is quite affordable. And so the paying for school is going to be the easy part. But she will not be able to work while she is in school pursuing the things of God. So if you would like to support her in any way, whether it's through prayers or a financial donation, you can just email us, respond to an email. You can type a message. You can send us a message on Facebook, and you can get a hold of us through wavemakerslife.com, and we can help you to make a donation or support her through prayer too. She would love to know if you are praying for her. And so if you feel led, feel free to let us know, and we will pass that information on. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for making waves the way that you do. And we always end with this thought: control yourself. And if you can't control yourself, because sometimes that's hard, just don't try to control anyone else, because it never works out well. And we want you to remember that God loves you, and so do we.